yeah, but Case, we'll go back to you. Just taking a look at who you've got on this Team Sweden roster for the Four Nations face-off next year.
Okay. In net, I have Ullmark, Gustafsson, and Markstrom. I suspect that we might have a 3-goalie sweep once again with Team Sweden here. Defense, I had Hedman with Karlsson, Erik Karlsson, Brodin with Dahlin, Ekholm, and Rasmus Anderson. And my extra, I again had 2 because I thought they were allowed more, is Forsling and Liljegren. On forward, I had maybe one of the most dynamic attacking lines I've ever seen on paper is Jesper Bratt, Elias Pettersson, and Willie Nylander. Then I had Forsberg, Zibanejad, and Kemp. And then I started thinking a little differently here and structured these last 2 lines as having like 2 strong defensive players and 1 strong scorer, and that was Landeskog, Eriksson Ek, and Raymond. That depends on Landeskog's health at this point. And then Backlund, Lindholm, and Leo Carlson. My extra was Kalle Järnkrok. Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the type of player I kind of had in mind. I actually didn't pick Kalle Järnkrok to make this team, but definitely a consideration. Here's my roster. Starting in net, then I'll go D, and then forwards, in case it is eerily similar to yours, which I think makes more sense because there's
structure here.
We talked about it. Like, there are players who played defined roles. It just makes a lot of sense. But starting in net, I've got Ullmark, Markstrom, and Gustafsson in that order. But an honorable mention to Samuel Ersson, who's had an incredible year this year, who could be a dark horse to make this team. Harp, you love Ersson. You and your brother both love Samuel Ersson.
Emerson does, especially because of fantasy.
Yes, you guys probably come home from work every night and just talk about Samuel Ersson all night. That's all you do. On the back end, I've got Hedman and Karlsson. Also Erik Karlsson on the top pair. Dahlin and Rasmus Anderson. And then I've got Hampus Lindholm, Jonas Brodin. And then as my extra, I have Adam Larsson. But honorable mentions to Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's had a resurgence this year. Ekholm and Gustav Forsling, too. Both those guys are great players. So you're seeing, Case, a lot of similarities here. Going to the forward group, here's where the similarities are crazy, because the top 2 lines are exactly the same. And I was thinking the same thing when putting them together, like dynamic offensive scoring lines. Like, and it fits. All these players fit. So to repeat, Bratt, Pettersson, and Nylander, and then Forsberg, Zibanejad, and Kempe as the top 2 lines. The bottom 6 is slightly different with very similar personnel. My third line I structured as sort of a young, fun scoring line. I have Leo Carlsson and Lucas Raymond with William Karlsson in the middle. So obviously William is a bit older, but the 2 young guys on the wings. And then the fourth line I structured as a defensive shutdown line that I think you're feeling confident putting out against any other team's top line in this tournament. Backlund, Eriksson Ek, and Lindholm. And then my extra is Burakovsky. I did not include Landeskog because he hasn't played in like 2 seasons. I know he's been skating, but we just don't know when he's going to be back, if ever. So
I had to put him in there because if he is an active NHL player, he'll be on this team.
He will, 100%. If he's an active NHL player, the rules do state that you need to be signed to an NHL contract to play. I don't know if it requires you to have played games that season. But regardless, if you're going to be playing for this team, because you're going to want to be playing games.
I did note that if Landeskog was not available, then William Karlsson was my guy in.
Yeah. So very similar. And a couple honorable mentions to Gus Nyquist, who is quietly one of the best Swedish scorers in the league and has been over the last 5 seasons. And Rickard Rakell, another guy who can put the puck in the net.
Yeah, absolutely. Love those Swedish rosters and the look of them. That's for sure. And again, with mine, I mean, it's pretty similar, and there's some recency bias involved. So Ullmark and Markstrom, and then of course Samuel Ersson. I had to. He's been great for the Philadelphia Flyers this season, so definitely going with him on this roster. I think like Hedman and Carlson, it's you've got a good yin yang kind of duo there, as you guys have mentioned. The one is defensive stalwart, and then the other is just all offense. Rasmus Dahlin and Hampus Lindholm, I think, would be an excellent second pair, and then the third pair was tough, but I got to go with Mattias Ekholm and Rasmus Andersson, Jonas Brodin as the extra D on this team. Then in the top six, Philip Forsberg with Pettersson and Nylander. I mean, obviously Pettersson and Nylander, really all three of those guys have the ability to drive the play. Then on the second line, talk about driving play, you've got Jesper Bratt with Mika Zibanejad. I think it'd be so much fun to see those two on a line together because of the Battle of the Hudson and the whole
spirit.
Yeah, the whole Devils Rangers rivalry and all of that. Adrian Kempe as the winger on that line. And, talk about like perfect roles on this team. I mean, Joel Eriksson Ek as your third line center. I mean, he's having a great year in Minnesota and really looks like a first line center now. But Eriksson Ek centering that third line with Lucas Raymond and Elias Lindholm, who you could put on the wing, who has a right shot, of course. And then on that fourth line, you've got Leo Carlsson, again, a guy who I think is going to be so good next season. He's going to be better and still has some growing to do, by the way. That is a young, talented kid with a big frame who's just going to continue to get better and better. So Carlson with Michael Backlund and Lucas Raymond. And I like that Calle Yarncroke pick as an extra. So I will go with him as well. I like that. Swiss Army knife. He can score. He can kill penalties, plays a good two-way game, and can play all three positions, really. So a Swiss Army knife, as you mentioned, their case.
Swedish Army knife. Yeah, I just felt that he was near a top 12 for me, and I figured, if one guy goes down or you need to swap someone out, he could just go anywhere and he could play any one of those lines and it would just work out because he is a chameleon on the ice. I think the one place that I might have stood out here, and I don't know, I could be wrong here, but I didn't even have Hampus Lindholm in my top 8 defensemen. And
true,
maybe it's because he's just so sheltered in Boston in my mind. Like he's just like not a guy I think about very often. He did cross my mind when I was making this list, but I just thought that I've really liked what I've seen from Forsling more than ever right now. And Liljegren just brings this kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it because he's a Leaf, but like grittier, presence in the corner. And he's kind of, it's a different look than the other Swedish defensemen here. Whereas I think Lindholm kind of blends in with a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, at least you picked Liljegren to make the team and not Rasmus Sandin, because that's another former Leaf that, could potentially be in the running. Now, I don't know if he'll be close by then. I mean, he plays a ton of minutes, but as a Leaf fan, I think I have to push back a little bit, though, on the Liljegren pick. I don't think you can convince me that he's better than any of the guys in my top 7, including Lindholm, even though Lindholm...
Well, he was my 8th defenseman, so...
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought he was your 7th.
No.
Okay. I mean, that makes it a little better. But yeah, Forsling's a good pick. Ekholm's a good pick. Harp, I know you like him. Both those guys were included. I didn't pick a guy like OEL, and I just included him as well in my honorable mentions because although he's had such a great season and has really found his groove again, he kind of brings the same thing as like an Erik Karlsson, and you don't need to.
So I looked this one up for fun. It just came to me. This player who I think he's kind of a Swedish Army knife, quote unquote, as we're calling it here on the pod. But he's having a great year. He's a former Devil. Fabian Zetterlund could maybe have an outside chance at making this team. Case, you with me or what?
I thought about him. I did think about him because he's scoring goals on the worst team, the second worst team in the league.
15 goals
right now. He plays just a different style hockey. He does. You wouldn't think he was Swedish if you didn't see his last name or look at his face, I guess. But he just plays a different game than all of these guys. It's just hard nose, grind, power forward type hockey. And I just don't really think of Sweden as that type of player. So I did think about him, and he's only getting better. But he didn't make it.
Well, how about another young Swede on the same team? William Eklund. Maybe he's so much better next season that he cracks it. Or Fabian Lysell from Boston. You know, like there are a lot of young players who could potentially crack this roster if they have good seasons next year, but it's just so hard to say, right? Because every player develops differently and at a different pace. So, like after the World Juniors, you'd think Lekaramaki as well, but you just can't. He's not even played in the NHL yet. Yeah, it's a different. and you know what? Like this tournament, because we haven't had best on best, like at all, like in the last however many years, it still feels like it's so far away. But it's only 1 year away. Like it's. Like I said, like it's true. February 15th to 20th is where I think it's slotted in 2025. That's 1 year from now. And, you know, so I think that's why we have this tendency to like think of these younger players because, what will this team look like in the future? Well, it is only 1 year away. So maybe it's just the best players now, you know, who make this team. When I was thinking about this team, there's like these guys that I was certain that are on the team. Then there's this list of young players that could be there maybe, and then there's this blob of the exact same player that I came across, and I'm like, does any one of these and I'll give you the blob here. It's tell me that any of these guys are generally different, and it's Marcus Johansson, Silverberg, Arvidsson, Jesper Fast, and there's one more, but I'm not stumbling across them here. I just like looked at those guys, I'm like, I'd confuse those guys. I think of that group, I like Arvidsson the best. I considered him to play like a fourth line role because I think he's a little more like closer to the Kalle Järnkrok type player where you can plug him into the lineup kind of wherever. He has that offensive upside, but is also, I mean, and like I don't have his underlying numbers in front of me, but I think he's better defensively than some of those other guys. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like a lot of these players play similarly, but I think when you go up and down the forward group, and it feels like we consistently like disagree on the forward group, maybe because there's more players to disagree about, but it seems like there is more balance on this team compared to the US where, you know, I feel like I had that problem more case where I'm looking at a group of players who all do the same thing. I feel like I had that problem more talking about the US than Sweden. Yeah. All those guys I said didn't even make the team. They're all right there. They're so like, I wouldn't be surprised if they took Marcus Johansson because of his experience. Mm-hmm. You know, by then he's played 900 and some games. Like maybe they take him and he's played international. Why not? I was looking at all of them and I'm like, there's this like tier of the same player. Mm-hmm. And I did come across one more fun stat is I just didn't think you could ever guess this is of all the active Swedes, who has the best plus minus in their entire career? Or forwards, sorry. Of all the active Swedes who are forwards, best plus minus?
Best plus minus of all of them. Huh.
I'm thinking like guys who have played a lot of games on good teams. So like I know Nylander isn't it because his plus minus isn't always great. I was thinking Pettersson, but he's played on Vancouver, who pretty much sucked compared to this year.
Better plus minus than Nylander though.
Yeah. Like Forsberg's played on Nashville, although Nashville was good for a long time and he was there.
Answer in 5 seconds.
Kempe, I'll go Forsberg.
I'll go Backlund.
William Karlsson.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, I just never would have thought that because of his late start to his career and everything. But I guess when you're playing on Vegas for the good chunk of it,
True.
it's a plus
That is
111.
true. Do you have the list in front of you right now?
I do.
Or
Yeah.
can you give me the top 5?
Forwards or all?
Forwards.
Top 5 is William Karlsson, Nicholas Backstrom, Michael Backlund, Kelly Yarncroc, and Joel Eriksson Ek.
Wow.
So Backlund.
Pedersen was 6 if you want to put him in there because Backstrom's not really playing hockey.
Backlund was a good guess then. All right.
Yep. Second one.
Perfect.
I mean, second one is Karlsson was 111 and Backlund was 75.
That's kind of shocking.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's an interesting stat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the stat that everyone deems unimportant.
Yeah, really.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's unimportant except at the extremes,
yeah,
I feel.
Yeah, when you've played 658 games, you're a plus 111. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
Yeah. It's like plus minus doesn't matter until you're, minus 100 every year for your career. And then it's like, well, maybe something's not going right.
Well, you want to shame the bottom 5? Is that what you're saying?
What, Swedes? Yeah, if you have it, let's hear it. Why not?
Marcus Johansson at minus 63. Lucas Raymond at minus 63. 211 games played, minus 63.
Oof.
Victor Olofsson, minus 59. Oscar Lindblom at minus 38. And William Eklund at minus 34. Tough start to the career.
A lot of those make sense.
That is tough.
Though. Like good,
Olofsson, that makes a
bad
ton
teams.
of sense. That guy's terrible.
Gonna be
5
good
on 5
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, on bad teams.
Did we?
but-
One more guy I just thought of, and we may have mentioned him, so forgive me if we have. Ricard Raquel. Did we mention him at all?
He was an honorable
Oh,
mention
okay.
from me.
My bad. Never mind.
But a guy who has played with some pretty damn good players and might fit better than someone else, right? Like fit really matters. So, and it matters who impresses at camp too. Like, I don't know how long these camps are going to be. It might just be a week or they might just be picked. Like, I have no idea how that's going to work, but maybe Raquel goes out there and impresses, right?
But there's I always think to Chris Kunitz and start thinking about all these players and go down this rabbit hole of Niels Hoglander has played pretty well
Yes.
on Vancouver lately. Does he get the nod because there's Pedersen on this
Another
team?
intriguing one. Absolutely.
But you get stuck down that list and that can go wrong pretty quick.
Yeah. It's a rabbit hole, just like you described it, because that was an anomaly with Chris Kunitz. Like, there's a reason we still talk about it today because
So strange.
that doesn't happen. But Sid was like, "Hey, this guy gets me the puck."
Yeah.
So yeah.
In terms
Interesting to think about,
of extra D, he's a good defenseman back playing now. Does Oliver Shillington get a look as an extra defenseman for this team? Maybe.
Maybe I thought about that.
Or
Here's
another. Sorry, Chad. Here's another interesting one for you guys. Playing almost 30 minutes a night in the American Hockey League, if he can end up in a different NHL situation next year and look really good and continue to develop. What about a guy like Broberg for the back end? No,
Zero chance.
Okay.
I think now we're talking
Chad
about
has written them off.
Broberg. We're talking about Broberg. I think the episode's over, guys. I think we've covered every player who could potentially make this team. Broberg will not. I'm sorry to Edmonton fans, but he will not.
He may get invited to camp.
What about Edvinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Elmer Soderblom.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
If
in.
you're looking for
if they need a
size.
6'8"
Yeah.
player with magical hands. If you need Tage Thompson but Swedish, sure.
Oh, wow. So he's the Swedish Mario Lemieux? Is that what you're calling him?
Oh, there you go.
geez.
That's what Harper would call him. I will say, and I was listening to one of our preseason predictions the other day, to prepare for our mid-season episodes, and I was talking about how I was watching Elmer Soderblom in Traverse City in the prospect game, and man, he looked really good. And I'm surprised that he's not, something, because he looked like a man amongst boys. Like, he really did. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's my take. I like the player, but he's not going to make the team.
No.
I think we're done.